Welcome back to my channel, and in this video, I'm going to be covering my reaction or my analysis of the Florida's loss to Utah on Thursday. I had recorded an initial reaction to it right after the game was over, but I was just so frustrated and emotional that I don't think I really did a good job of articulating myself in that recording. So that's why I'm not going to upload that because I think I was so upset about the game that I was kind of just rambling rather than speaking on the game coherently. So that's the reason why I'm doing a take two of this. And now that I feel that now that I've had a few days to let it sink in, I can give a much more calculated analysis and commentary of what happened. Florida got outplayed and outcoached. There's no other way to say it. Um, they, I kind of had a feeling this would happen because I said Florida would lose to Utah. I didn't think they would look as inept as they did, especially in that first quarter. First quarter, Florida takes the ball. Graham Mertz throws a simple check down pass to, I believe it was Khalil Jackson, and gets a 9 yard play. Second down and one, they do it. So it was an eight. I think it was maybe an 8 yard play. Second down and two, they do a jet sweep to Ricky Parasol. Not exactly was a fan of that play call, but it was like, you know what? At least I could say you put the ball in Ricky Pearsall's hands. But I would have preferred you just handed it to your running backs, Trevor Etienne, Montrell Johnson, which was an issue that I'm going to cover later in this video. Ricky Pearsall only gets 1 yard. It's third down and one. False start. Third down and six now. Florida fails the third down and six. Now they have to punt it, and then Utah scores on the very next play on a play action pass down the field in which R.J. Moten, who at the time was Jordan Castell, but then when I looked up the Florida Gators roster and I saw the numbers, I saw 16 on defense was R.J. Moten, not Jordan Castell. So I apologize to Jordan Castell for that one. Jordan Castell wore number 14, and Jordan Castell also made his very first start for Florida in this game. So not a good start, 7-0. Utah. Then after both teams exchange punts, Florida gets a nice scoring drive, but they actually moved the ball down the field and actually had a decent, respectable scoring drive. Then they get the ball back. They start to do it again. They're down 7-3 at this point. It's third down and 11. Grammer scrambles and actually almost gets a first down and actually looked a little bit kind of athletic on that run, and he lowered his shoulder and took a big hit from a Utah guy. He fumbles it, but the ball goes out of bounds, so they don't turn it over. So it's fourth down and one. They're gonna go for it, but then you have another false start penalty that backs them up fourth down and six. Well, now it's fourth down and six, so they opt to kick the field goal. Adam Mahalik, I think that's how you say his name, misses the field goal. Adam Mahalik is by far the worst kicker I've seen the Florida Gators have since Austin Harding. I believe that was his name, Austin Harding, who used to kick for Florida. Adam Mahalik struggles to make field goals inside the red zone. I remember back a time when Florida special teams was damn near everything for the Gators in the Jim Harbaugh era. Yeah, Austin Harding. I mean, excuse me, not Jim Harbaugh. See what I'm saying about the rambling? Urban Meyer. For Urban Meyer, special teams was just as important as offense and defense. And if he cannot trust you on special teams, he's not going to be able to trust you on either side of the ball, offense or defensively. Adam Mahalik is one of the worst kickers. Probably the worst kicker I've ever seen at Florida. When are the Gators are just going to say, you know what, let's let Trey Smack kick the field goals because it's not like he can get any worse. But anyways, he misses the field goal. Utah drives down to midfield. They punt to Florida after a failing on a third down, but the punt is rescinded because the Gators had two men with the same jersey number on the field at the same time, which is a penalty, and now Utah gets to extend the drive, and now the defense is shell shocked because they just forced the third down stop, and the defense actually wasn't that bad in this game. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. The defense forces a third down stop. They get off the field. Now they have to come back onto the field, shell shocked, and then Utah capitalizes it and scores a touchdown. Just terrible, terrible, terrible discipline by the Gators in this game. Then you go to the second half. Uh, the defense once again forces a punt, but it means nothing. Utah has the ball first in the second half, three and out. UG Wilson, freshman kick returner and wide receiver, fields the punt inside his own 5, and now so the Gators are backed up deep into their own territory. Few plays later, Graham Mertz, I almost said Anthony Richardson, Graham Mertz throws a pass, bounces off of Ricky Pearsall's chest and hands. It goes into a Utah defender. Utah scores a touchdown on a extremely short field. Pop Warner teams tell their kick returners, put your heels at the 10-yard line. If the ball goes over your head, don't touch it. Let the kick return team keep it inside the 10-yard line if it's going to happen, instead of you trying to field it. Because if you remember in 2022 when Florida lost to Vanderbilt last year, one of the key plays was that Jason Marshall tries to field the punt inside his own 10. He muffs the punt. It goes into the end zone, and Vanderbilt recovers it for a touchdown, and Vanderbilt will go on to win the game. That's the reason why they tell you don't try to field the punt inside your own 10. Now, maybe the interception that Graham Mertz threw would have happened regardless, but at least it wouldn't have been inside your own 10. At least don't pin your offense that deep into your territory if that were to happen. Uh, and then just bad play calling by Billy Napier. I don't think he even tried to commit to the run game. He gave up on it too soon. The pass protection by the Florida Gators in this game was not good. Graham Mertz got knocked around. Um, uh, and then the bad, and then it get so eventually Florida starts trying to bring their way back into this game, try to like fight their way back into the game. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Fight their way back into it. It's a 24-11 Utah, and it's 24-11 Utah. They're going to kick a long field goal, a 50-something yard field goal, and Florida got lucky because, as you can see in this play, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 defenders are out there on the football field. I didn't even realize this when I was watching the play live, because I figured they would had a couple of guys. Figured they had a couple of guys running onto. I didn't realize this during it live until somebody took a screenshot of it and then posted it after the game was over. How do you have 8 men on the field for a field goal? How is that possible? For a this is this is something not even high school football teams do this, let alone a Power 5 school in the college football in the SEC. This is absolutely atrocious and amateurish. This is really sad. What happened on this play right here? That's terrible. That's pathetic. And then Billy Napier's clock management, when he finally got the drive, was terrible because this dude is waiting until like there's 4 or 5 seconds left to call plays to try to like maybe get their team in a scoring position to possibly, get back into the game, maybe even win it. And he run the clock out on his own team because of course Florida doesn't score 80 points, but they took off 4 minutes off the clock. In Utah, all they had to do was just kneel it a couple of times, and they won. So you had bad penalties that were killing your drives or keeping Utah's drives on the field. You had terrible special teams play, terrible special teams play. 2 players being on the same field at the same time, just fundamental issues all over the place. Bad clock management, bad play calling by Billy Napier, and not only that, Billy Napier on the sideline just looked as if he didn't have a pulse. Like he was just walking through the park instead of coaching a football game. Like, say what you want about Will Muschamp, even though his shtick of just yelling and just absolutely getting in the players' faces became more of a caricature because Florida started to lose, it started to look more clownish. But at least you could see when his players make a mistake, the guy lets them know, hey, you made a stupid mistake here. Don't do that again. At least that was better than what we saw from Napier, which was just standing around on the sideline, no emotion, not not talking to his players, not trying to get his, not trying to, not trying to not trying to jumpstart the players' mentality of going back out there and finishing the plays and doing what they need to do on the field. There was just no emotion, no passion from the guy. In which, a lot of cases, having a head coach who's cool, calm, and collective is good in a lot of cases. In this case, I think you need to know when to turn it on and turn it off. And Billy Napier never seemed to know how to turn it on. And like I said, protection was bad, gave up on the run game, horrible clock management at the end, not knowing when to use his timeouts. Because as you can see here on this field goal attempt, there's like 10 seconds left. He didn't even call a timeout to at least preserve himself some time. Graham Mertz, to me, wasn't an issue in this game. I think he tried to do the best that he could, but because of bad things happening around him, he was forced to play hero ball, which is not his skill set. As you can see here, Dave Waters of Gators Breakdown, Florida averaged an impressive 7.6 yards gained on first down versus Utah, and still found a way to manage an average of third down and 10.2 yards to go. Yeesh. Yeah, yeesh is right. That was anemic what we saw out there on the football field. I don't even know how do you go from second down to 3 to third down to 12 on a consistent basis. That's not even most bad teams are not even good enough to do that. Like I said, Graham Mertz to me, I didn't think was the biggest issue in this game. I think he tried to do the best that he could. The defense to me, I'm not going to give too much credit because they were going up against Utah third and fourth string quarterbacks. To me, I thought the run defense looked a little bit better than what we saw from Florida last year. I mean, granted, that's a low ceiling, but I actually thought they did a respectable job defending the run. 105 yards, considering what Florida was giving up last year, that's night and day different. Third down efficiency, a lot of Gator fans have complained over the last few years with Todd Grantham's defense under Dan Mullen and last year with Patrick Toney about how the defense couldn't get off the field on third downs. Even though it is third and fourth string quarterbacks against Utah, you still were able to get Utah to be 3 for 13 on third down plays. Even if you're going up against backup quarterbacks, that's still pretty good. And again, I know people are going to look at the 24 points and be like, "Oh, well, Florida's defense isn't that much better." But uh, like I said, a couple of situations where Utah had short fields to work with because of the punt penalty, which two same number of jersey guys were on the field at the same time, and another one because Eugene Wilson decided to field his own punt inside his own 5, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I've already talked about that. So a couple of those touchdown drives wasn't because Florida's defense allowed Utah to drive down the field. It was more so because Utah had a short field to work with. Of course, there were drives where Utah were able to make it to at least midfield or something like that. So Florida was bending, but they didn't break. Uh, Positives, if I had to name any, I liked what I saw from Marcus Burke in the first quarter. He actually stood out in the first quarter, but he didn't do much afterwards. Um, I liked what I saw from Princely Umanyalan as an edge rusher, and there were some flashes to where some of the defensive linemen, like a Jamari Lyons and T.J. Searcy, um, flashed in the backfield and made good plays in the backfield. I thought Jordan Costello didn't really look like the moment was too big for him. Um, it didn't look like that at all. I thought there was a play where he actually could have had an interception because he and I believe it was Miguel Mitchell. They played a coverage in which a Utah receiver ran right in between them, and Miguel Mitchell um, knocked the ball in the air. And Jordan Costello was so focused on playing the receiver, defending the receiver, that if had he would have stopped trying to chase the receiver down and actually looked for the ball and slowed down a little bit and looked for the ball, he had an interception right in front of him. Had he would have in my opinion, played the ball a little bit better, especially because Miguel Mitchell had deflected the ball up in the air and it was kind of like in the air for a few seconds. Jordan Costello had a chance to get his first INT. That was right before halftime. Uh, and just another, I guess you could say positive is that Caleb Douglas got his first touchdown for Florida. He did a nice job mossing the Utah defensive back and just snatching the ball out there, preventing him from getting it. Outside of I know I talked about the Eugene Wilson fielding the punt inside his own 5 a couple of times, but outside of that, I saw some shiftiness out of him. I actually saw some flashes where it's like, ooh, when the ball's in his hand, he can make guys miss. He kind of reminded me of Kadarius Toney to a certain extent. So outside of that boneheaded play, I thought Eugene Wilson had some nice moments. And Jonathan Odom, I know he's not really a threat after the catch in terms of yards after catch or yards after contact or whatever. I mean, the guy's running on one leg. I mean, he tore his ACL last year, so he's kind of I think he's still kind of recovering from that because you saw a giant brace on his knee. But I did like what I saw from him. I mean, Florida doesn't really have a true number one tight end, but he made some things happen out of that position. So I mean, I'm not going to say it's 100% negative. There are some things you can take away from it. And another positive note is that I do think these mistakes are correctable. I think Florida can look at the tape and work on some of these things that I mentioned about. I don't think these things are incurable. Um, I will say, however, Billy Napier. I think it's time for Billy Napier to give. I mean, on the offense? Can Billy Napier call on to give up plays? Is it Rob Sale? Because supposedly he's the offensive coordinator, but we all know it's Billy Napier's offense. Billy Napier is trying to I think Billy Napier is starting to develop an ego where he's like trying to do things his way and where he's the head coach, the offense coordinator, the quarterbacks coach, and the play caller. And it's like, I mean, I just need you, Billy Napier, I just need you to be focused on being a head coach and being the general of the operations in regards to the Florida Gator football program. Give yourself an offensive coordinator and let him call the plays and let him coach the quarterbacks. You need to be the head coach. You need to be worried about all facets of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. And for God's sakes, man, please change your special teams coordinator because whoever that guy is, he's not doing a good job at all. I'm not even sure if you are even really paying it. If you're really in, are you in the meetings when when the Florida Gators are having their special team meetings? Are you in there saying, "Hey, make sure you get the. Hey, you need to make sure your gunners, your kick returners, the guys who protect the punter to when he's getting ready to deliver the punt. Do they have these things locked up, tightened up? Do you have these things accounted for heading into this upcoming game?" Uh, there's a lot of stuff that Billy Napier needs to work on, and there's things that he needs to change in order to help Florida improve and salvage a good season for Florida. Because if they continue to play like this, you know what? The people that had Florida going 5-7, 4-8, you may have proven them right. Maybe even being 5-7 is being generous if you don't correct these mistakes, which I think you can correct these mistakes because it is in game one as opposed to game 8 or game 9. You can still work on these things. And luckily for Florida, they have McNeese State and FCS school coming up, so maybe they can use that game as a way to um, work out the bugs, so to speak, in their team before the season, before their competition really starts to heat up because they're going to have Tennessee in a couple of weeks, and that's stuff that they need to address well beforehand. And as soon as they get back to practice on, I believe Monday, from that moment on, they need to start working on fundamentals, basics, discipline. Stop making dumb penalties that are killing your team. Stop making stupid mistakes that are keeping your defense on the field after they get third down stops. Stop, stop handicapping your own, stop handicapping your own game plan and handicapping your team from winning the games. So, I kind of rambled on a little bit longer than I wanted to. That's my reaction to Florida versus Utah, and I'm gonna say this to Billy Napier as the final word. If you don't correct these things right now, you're going to be looked at years from now as one of the worst hires in Power Five college football of recent memory. Certainly of the 2020s decade. Right now, Brian Harsin was the worst head coaching hire in the Power Five of the 2020s decade, and right now it looks like you're competing for that number two spot. Had it not been for the Virginia coach Tony Elliott and the other head coach who's coaching at Virginia Tech. Right now, Billy Napier, you look like you're number two on that list.